Hello and welcome back, guys and girls, to 2-Bit Gaming. So today we are going to go over a few N64 gems that sadly never saw the light of day. These games that I'm going to go through today were all cancelled, some for completely valid reasons and some for bizarre reasons which you just will not believe until you watch. So let's get into it. So first off, to start things, we're going to go through one that a lot of you may not have heard of. Now, this was way back, right at the start, or before the life of the N64, and we're going to be talking about Kirby Bowl 64. Now, basically, it was the unreleased prototype of what became Kirby's Air Ride, which was also cancelled for 64. Until it then resurfaced ages and ages later on the GameCube. So Kirby's Bowl, or Kirby's Dream Course, which it was known as in the West, that was released on the SNES in 1994, and it was going to be basically Kirby Bowl 64 was going to be a sequel alongside Mario 64 and Pilot Wing 64. That was going to be a launch title when the N64 was announced. It was covered in magazines, and there was some early footage which I'm showing briefly now. It's literally a couple of seconds, and that was in 1995. However, when the N64 launched in 1996, it just vanished. From what we know, it appears that kind of the role, or your role in the game, I mean, Kirby is basically, he's a golf ball, as he was back on the SNES version, and basically just flying around courses, dodging obstacles. There's even footage of sort of like a multiplayer battle style with people like knocking each other off of the levels and that kind of thing. But still to this date there is no playable version of Kirby Bowl 64, and well, as you can see, the footage is limited. So the next game that was going to be on the N64, but sadly once again was cancelled, was the monster, which is Diablo. So in 1997, Nintendo bought the rights to publish Diablo in Japan for their then, at the time, new add-on, the 64 DD. You know how that went. Obviously the extension was going to be used for rewritable discs, giving more than enough disk space to adapt the game without sort of cutting it down too much. Problem is, obviously the 64 DD failed, which meant the cancellation of the project. However, it didn't mean the end of the collaboration between obviously Nintendo and Blizzard, as StarCraft 64 was released in 2000, but sadly Diablo was forgotten. Another little game, I say little game, I loved it. Kind of got a mixed bag of reviews, but I thought it was an awesome game, was Glover. And Glover 2 was in the works. Now, the N64 version of Glover, as I say, it was surprisingly decent, but something terrible went wrong. Now, a sequel was announced with multiplayer, there was a more complex story. It was there, the game was 85% complete when it was cancelled. Why was it cancelled then, you may ask? Well, for those of you who may not know, a Hasbro employee ordered too many cartridges of the original game. And when I say too many, I'm talking 150,000 too many. So this almost bankrupted the company back in the day. So in the end, Glover, which would have been a hit, for sure would have been a hit, ended up not making enough money to warrant the release of the second one. So yeah, there is a version of the unfinished sequel, and it's said to be sort of floating around online. I couldn't find anything for it, but it is meant to be there, and sad because Glover was awesome. It was a cool little platformer, but Glover 2, dead in the water. Now the next one is Cameo, Elements of Power. So some may argue it wasn't a great game anyway, so maybe it was a good thing, it didn't make its way to the 64. I would have to argue it may have been better on the 64. Obviously it would have been a smaller scale, there was less expectations at the time. I mean, the game was a rare production for the N64. That then got delayed to the GameCube. I remember getting a disc with Nintendo Official Magazine with the beta, which you can see now, of Cameo for the GameCube. But then it got ported to the Xbox when the company was sold to Microsoft, and then finally on the 360 it was a launch title on there. Now the thing is, I just think it may have lived up to expectations on the 64 had it had not to have been restarted so many times. It was just over and over and over, it seemed. And to be fair, it still looks a decent game, it still holds up, and I didn't think it was terrible, but I feel if it had had a chance on the 64, it really could have grown some wings and flown. But sadly, once again, Cameo, N64, cancelled. Now another game that a lot of people may or may not have heard of is ODT, or Die Trying. Now this was a game that was eventually released on PlayStation and Windows, however it was supposed to be on the 64. To the point it was featured in Nintendo Power. Over several months it was in there, and there were even posters for the game in there. I mean, the N64 version was completed, and it was good to go, and everyone was ready for it to come out, and there was never any reason given as for its last minute cancellation. It just never made it to the console. Eventually, the completed game for the 64 was leaked online, and this is the footage that you're watching now. And if I'm honest, there appear to be no major changes from the other versions, so why on earth it was cancelled, we will never know. That will always remain a speculation, but it was cancelled. Another one, which later on came to the GameCube, and I owned this game on GameCube, but at the time it was one that once again was in the works, and that was Diehard 64, developed by Bit Studios, and it was planned for a release in 1999. It was, funnily enough, never shown to the press or public, but a fully playable, yet early version of the game is out there. And for all intents and purposes, this game was basically, it went on to become Die Hard Vendetta, as I say, on the GameCube. And I will show, well, some of that footage for you now, just so you can see the comparisons. Very similar looking games, you can see where they were going with it. But once again, for no reason at all, it never came out on the GameCube, the N64. And to this day we'll never really know why. It was there is a playable version of it, but never made it. And lastly, another game which I've gone on about in other videos on my own channel, 40 Winks. For those of you who don't know, 40 Winks is a 3D platformer which actually came out on the PlayStation in 1999, but it was meant to be on the N64, and it was meant to be a huge title, even to the point that the tagline for the game was "Move over Mario." That's how big they thought 40 Winks was going to be. So the company who developed it, GT Interactive, they'd always intended there to be an N64 version of the game, but they cancelled amid sort of financial troubles, so it never made it. There was everything. I remember reading Nintendo Official Magazine. It was covered over several months. It was huge. Even before it came out, people were rating it kind of between 80 and 90%. So it was going to be awesome. I was so into it at the time. Rough and Tumble, the two characters, and the fact that you could change who you were personality-wise. You could sort of change in game. I was sold as a youngster. But it just never came about. In 2018, in February of 2018, there was a massive Kickstarter for the game. There was a lot of news about it, a lot of money invested in it. Since then, Nothing at all. So whether they're working on it in secret, who knows? But as of yet, still no word of a 40 Winks. So that's it today, guys and girls. Just a couple of games and a bit of a random video, but I was just thinking and looking over some games from the past that I remember hearing out from as a kid, or hearing rumours of them, it never happening, and I just kind of wanted to look into why and where, and as I say, some unusual reasonings as to why, and for some, no reason as to why these games didn't come out on the N64, which is sad, but I'm sure these companies have their reasons. So if you have enjoyed today's video, as per usual, do click that like button. If you haven't already subscribed, then please feel free to do so. We would absolutely love for you to be one of our subscribers. It would mean the world to both myself and Josh, and obviously leave your comments. This is an interesting one, this video. So what games have I missed? Potential games that didn't come out on the N64 that you would love to see. Maybe there are even games on other consoles that you feel should have been on the N64. Do let us know in the comments, that would be amazing. And as always, guys and girls, whatever it is you're doing today, have a great time. Take care, love to you all, bye bye.